Today, I want to talk about the emergency fund. Should you have an emergency fund? You have payday loans and accounts that will give you your paycheck early, and also credit cards. So do you still really need an emergency fund in 2020? And also, what are the pros of having an emergency fund and the cons as well, because there are also downsides to it. Now, if you do decide that you want to have an emergency fund, then the main question would be just how much money should you have in there, and how do you determine the amount of money that should be in your emergency fund as opposed to other people, because you may earn more or less and have different expenses, and so your emergency fund needs to be just right for you. So in this video, I'll be going over all these and more, so stick around to the very end so you can hear more about the emergency fund. Now, if you're new to the channel and this is the first time that you're seeing me or watching one of my videos, my name is Ian, and even if it's not the first time, be sure to give this video a thumbs up. I'll really appreciate it. And this is how these videos get recommended to more people here on YouTube and can potentially help someone out as well. Also, be sure to consider subscribing to this channel, and this will allow you to get the updates every day when I post a new video here. And yes, you heard that right. I post a new video here on YouTube every single day. So if you want daily content on personal finance topics, be sure to turn on all notifications for this channel. Now, before we get started, I want you to comment down below and let me know if you have an emergency fund or not, because I think most people don't, but I still want to know. So comment down below, just comment yes or no, so I can see if people actually have emergency funds. Now, let's start by looking at the pros of an emergency fund. And by the way, we should all know what an emergency fund is, but if you don't know, it's just some money that you keep somewhere that you never ever use unless you have some emergency. Like, let's say you lose your job, or your car breaks down, or your roof starts to leak. Then you use the money from the emergency fund to cover the expenses, and then you put that money back afterwards. So the first pro to having the emergency fund is that it gives you peace of mind. You don't have to worry. So if you were to go to work today and your boss told you that you were fired, then you'd not be happy about it either way. But if you didn't have an emergency fund, you'd start to worry about how you would pay your bills and your living expenses. If you have an emergency fund, then you don't worry so much because you have money to cover your living expenses until you find another job. So in the same sense, if you have some other emergency, like let's say the car you use for work every day breaks down, or the AC or heater stops working and you need $1,000 or $1,500 to have it repaired, then you can do so with money from your emergency fund. Now, you could use a credit card or a loan to cover emergency expenses, but we'll talk about that in a little. But the emergency fund also prevents you from getting into debt, so this is another pro of having an emergency fund. Now, you never want to confuse wants and emergencies, so losing your job and needing money to pay your rent, your mortgage, or bills is an emergency. Your car breaking down is an emergency. You injuring yourself is an emergency. Things that aren't emergencies are like being invited to a trip across the country or the world. Don't take money from your emergency fund for that, or upgrading your car, or something else that you want but you don't really need or doesn't really stop you from living. Now, just like everything else, having an emergency fund comes with its downsides. Now, the main con to having an emergency fund, and also the main reason people don't want to keep emergency funds, is because you'll have this money set aside doing nothing all the time. Now, when you think about it, if you put this money into a CD or in some form of investments like the stock market, then this money could earn you interest or returns, but just keeping the money in a regular bank account doesn't benefit you. This is actually very true. You won't really benefit from keeping money in an emergency fund, as the money will never grow, and you may even lose a little of this money year to year from inflation. However, if you were to invest the money or put it in a CD, then you wouldn't have access to it. It would be locked away, and if you have an emergency, you want to be able to access that money immediately. You don't want to have to sell some investments and wait a day or two, or cancel your CD and pay a penalty for doing so. So let's talk about the alternatives now, which would be going into debt. So if you don't have an emergency fund and you run into some form of emergency, then you need money, and you'll have to either get a personal loan or use your credit card. And most people will use their credit cards because it's easier and you can get the cash faster. Now, if you use your credit card, if you can pay off the balance quickly, then that could work. But what if the emergency is losing your job? Would you really want to start putting your monthly expenses on a credit card and having interest tacked onto it while you're looking for a job and not really knowing when you'll find one? I know I wouldn't. I would prefer to not add extra stress or worries to that situation. So again, it still gives you peace of mind and security. And remember guys, these emergencies often happen at the worst possible times. So for this reason, I wouldn't use debt to replace my emergency fund. Now, how much money do you really need for this emergency fund? Well, that depends on how much you earn, how you spend, and your burn rate. So let's say you have no debt and you invest most of your earnings. In that case, I think an emergency fund could be 3 months worth of expenses. So whatever you spend every month on rent, mortgage, utilities, food, transportation, and all your needs, you would multiply that number by 3, and that should be the minimum amount in your emergency fund. So in this case, if you lose your job, you have 3 months to find another job, and during those 3 months, your life won't really change. You'll have a lot of free time. Now, 3 months is the minimum and you can make this longer if you want. If you don't have a lot of space in your budget after all your expenses are paid off every month, then I think 6 months would be best, because in that case, it means you're already not investing or saving much. So in the previous example, if you were to somehow get to 3 months and not find a job, then you could liquidate some of your investments to cover your living expenses, and you have 3 months to figure this out. But if you never had savings or investments in the first place, then you'll need more money in the emergency fund to cover you, especially if you have a family. So in this case, I would say contribute as much as you possibly can to your emergency fund until you get it to 6 months worth of expenses. And then if you ever have an emergency, your life won't really change. You'll still be able to care for yourself and your family until you find a new job. So if you find out how much money you spend per month, you can determine what your emergency fund should be. And then I would recommend that you contribute the maximum amount that you can to your emergency fund first before you actually do anything else. So if after all your expenses you have $200 free every week, then I would contribute that $200 to the emergency fund every week until I get it to where it needs to be. And if you want to speed this up, you can get a second job or a third job or a side gig or something that makes you a little extra money, and do it for a few weeks just to get your emergency fund in place. Now, this is how I got my emergency fund, because saving from my primary job would have taken a very long time. So I got 2 additional jobs and I was able to save enough for an emergency fund in just 2 months. So for the average person, if you make, let's say, $4,000 per month and your burn rate, which is the amount of money you need to survive on, let's say is $1,800 a month, then you don't need to save $12,000 for your emergency fund. You could, but that would be 3 months of income. You need at least 3 months in expenses, which would be $5,400. So anywhere from 3 to 6 months of emergency money is good. So in this example, you want to have anywhere from $5,400 to $10,800 in your emergency fund. So it's a really good feeling to know that whatever happens, I have 6 months where I can pay all my expenses, and I won't go into debt if I don't make any money for a couple months in the year. Also, if you want to know where to put your emergency fund, I would recommend putting it in one of the highest yield savings accounts that you can find, so you don't lose much to inflation year by year. Now, comment down below and let me know if any of this makes any sense to you. Do you now think an emergency fund is important or not? Would you rather have one, or would you rather use a credit card for emergencies or liquidate your investments or property? Comment down below and let me know what you guys think. I hope you guys found this video helpful, and if you'd like to see more videos just like this one, be sure to give this video a thumbs up, as that's the way these videos get recommended to more people here, and I'll really appreciate it. And guys, don't forget to check out some of my other videos here on the channel on credit cards, banking apps, savings accounts, investments, ways to make money, and much more. Also, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already done so, and be sure to turn on all notifications for this channel, as that's the only way you'll be able to get the updates of when I post new videos here. And remember, I'm posting a new video here on YouTube every single day. And remember, I'm also leaving a couple links down below to free stuff and free cashback offers. So be sure to check all the links down below in the description for all kinds of free stuff. Now, if this is the first video that you're watching from my channel, I have other videos relating to paying off debt and budgeting, so be sure to check those videos out as well. And if you aren't investing as of yet, be sure to check out WEBULL or M1 Finance, and I've left links to them below. And with WEBULL, after signing up, you'll receive a free stock or 2 free stocks, which can be valid at up to $1,600. If you like the stocks, they're free, you can keep them. If you don't like the stocks that you get for free, then you can sell them and keep the cash, or use the money to purchase other stocks that you would prefer to invest in. With M1 Finance, you'll get $10 for free to go towards your investments. Once again, I hope this video was very helpful. All the best, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.